move on to our next speaker, Dr. Marco Buffi from the Joint Research Center of the European Commission. And he will be speaking on renewable fuels of non-biological origin in the EU, state-of-the-art and future perspectives. Dr. Buffi, over to you.
Thank you very much, and I hope that you can hear me well. So,
Yep.
Good morning again to everybody. So let me share my presentation. I hope that it's quite clear. Okay. So again, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you again for the invitation to talk about the topic of renewable fuel of non-biological origin in the European Union. So today I'm here to show the result of an exercise of the JRC that is reporting the status of such fuel in Europe annually. But before starting, I would like to present the Joint Research Center of the European Commission, which is the science and knowledge service that is supporting the European Commission in the policy making process. In particular, my group that is based in Ispra, in the northern part of Italy, is providing support as regards the bioenergy, biofuel, and alternative fuel assessment, including the energy and the greenhouse gas emission accounting. So it's important to mention that today I'm going to show you the findings and the outcomes that are coming from the Clean Energy Technology Observatory, which is an exercise done by JRC annually, started in 2022, and a series of reports are available online for download. So later I will add in the chat the link to reach directly the web page to download the reports. However, today I'm going to talk about the category of renewable fuel non-biological origin, referring also quickly to Renewable, where we are going to provide the state of the art and all the categories that you can find on the top right in this table. So we are going to do a full assessment. So I don't have the time to talk about everything, but I'll try to show you the main findings. So first of all, it's important to start from the definition. We are talking about this category named renewable fuel non-biological origin, meaning that this is a political definition, not a physical definition. So what we are going to intend? We are going to intend the synthetic fuel produced from hydrogen derived from water and the renewable energy. Except for sure the energy deriving from biomass in the form of heat of electricity. So with this term that has been introduced in the Renewable Energy Directive, that is the overall, let's say the overarching policies regulating the renewable energy share in Europe. I will show you later about the policy side. However, this kind of fuel consists in the fuel derived from hydrogen and CO2 captured from fossil or biological sources under certain specific fuels, or direct air capture technologies. We can also refer to such synthetic fuel coming from nitrogen combined with hydrogen, so including ammonia for sure. But the important is that the renewable energy comes to create this fuel and not the fossil energy. Finally, it's important to mention that usually politically speaking, we can refer also to hydrogen, but in this report, we are going to refer only to the downstream process. So meaning all the processes that are going to produce ammonia, hydrocarbons and methanol. So in this slide, you can see the main pathways that we are going to consider. And the target is to produce this kind of fuels that are eligible for the European legislation to decarbonize the transport sector. However, it's important also to mention that with the Refombio, sometimes we are going also to create a framework of fuel that are eligible for other purposes. So, for instance, the industry and the chemical sector as well, because we are talking about, for instance, alcohol and ammonia that are also good for other purposes than fuel. As regards the legislation in Europe, very quickly, I would like to mention the Green Deal. That is the main policy package that is setting the target for the full decarbonization towards 2050. And more recently, in 2021, the Commission released the Fit for 55 package, which is a series of policies that are targeting to a further reduction up to 55% of the greenhouse gas emission by 2030. In particular, within the Renewable Energy Directive that I also mentioned before, that is introducing this definition of refumbioes, we have a specific renewable energy target, and for transport, we have other sub-target. In particular, from the last 2 years, when the last RED, also named RED 3, comes in force, it has been introduced a minimum required of 1% of renewable fuel on non-biological origin within the transport sector, meaning that we have a target into the legislation, and this target is also used in other piece of legislation that I will show you later. However, it's important to mention that we have 2 delegated regulations that are integrating the Renewable Energy Directive that are going to set the criteria on how to create such eligible fuel for the decarbonization purposes in Europe. So we have also other policy packages that are setting the rules for the introduction into the market of such fuels. In particular, it's worth mentioning that in parallel to refumbioes, we have also the low carbon fuel regulation, which is a delegated regulation that is coming out in this period, that is coming from the overall package of hydrogen and decarbonized gas market package. So it's important to mention that low carbon hydrogen is not the renewable hydrogen, but has different fuels. However, sometimes the fuel can be the same ones. Then with the Net Zero Industry Act that has been released, the delegated regulation in a short period, we have had a list of eligible components to create such fuels. So these are the criteria that will help the taxonomy, which is the sustainable economy rules to, let's say, to produce the renewable energy technologies. We have a specific category for refumbioes that are providing a specific support on this category of fuel. Then also finally, I want to mention quickly also the RefuelEU Aviation and the RefuelEU Maritime that are integrating the RED target within these packages and also set a more ambitious target up to 2050, while the Renewable Energy Directive is setting up a target up to 2030. Then I will start to show you very quickly the main findings from the CITO report. In particular, we have tried to condense all the results in few slides. So starting from the carbon intensity. This is a very big effort to calculate the carbon intensity of these fuels. It's important to mention that this carbon intensity, as you can see in this chart, where we selected the most interesting, let's say, categories of refumbioes, is very low. It's very low. Why is low? Because we are considering, according to the legislation, that the renewable hydrogen is coming with 0 as carbon intensity. So these emissions are the emissions for processing, meaning all the emissions that are needed to transform the hydrogen and the available CO2. In this case, we have considered to have the pure CO2 to produce these fuels ready to be transformed into refumbioes. However, it's important also to mention that system boundaries in this exercise are very important, meaning that for a new project where CO2 is not available in the pure form, for sure the emission to capture it and put it into the fuel will be accounted. So I want to stress that the carbon intensity is an exercise that needs, in each case study, this specific calculation. So it's very hard to refer to, let's say, default values that is valid for all case studies. And the same is for the energy use, which is shown in this slide. Because we have, but let's say the energy use is reflected into the emissions. It's important also to mention that this result comes from an exercise done by the JRC 4 years ago, that is named JEC, that is the joint effort, sorry, it's a joint study done by JRC, Concavi, and the UCAR as regard the well-to-wheel assessment. You can also download this from our repository. Then I want to introduce a new part of our report from the last year, which is the scenario assessment, because together with some colleagues in Seville, which is another branch of the JRC, we started to model the scenarios of renewable energy production towards 2050. In particular, here you can see the result from the Refombios assessment using the Potentia tool, which is a tool developed by JRC that is delivering this kind of energy modeling exercise. And together on the right, you can see also the exercise done by Paul's JRC, which is another model focusing the techno-economic assessment. I will show you later also another slide. However, it's important to mention that in this scenario towards 2050, we expect to have not only one type of fuel, but a contribution more significant from the fuels that today are not used, in particular methanol and ammonia to decarbonize the maritime sector. And for sure, the synthesis process here, the Fischer-Tropsch, to produce synthetic kerosene for the aviation sector. And then the other part of the Paul's exercise on the left is showing the techno-economic assessment, meaning that the costs today to produce the energy unit of fuel are quite high, but we expect that they are going to be reduced for both gaseous and liquid steam fuels in the coming years. And on the right, we wanted to show also another chart that has been produced by Concavi, which is showing how the cost of e-fuels that could include also renewable fuel on biological origin are really dependent on the cost of renewables. So I don't want to go through this topic, which will be investigated quite in more details today, but I think it's important to mention it. And today sometimes it's very let's say, it's very hard to predict the cost of such fuels in the coming years. Our report are also showing a big reviews and using our tools to collect data as regard the investment about this sector. What I can say is that in Europe today, we have no established industry of Refombios, but we have a lot of pilot projects that are going to be developed. And considering the worldwide market, we see that Europe together with United States are leading the sector. However, we are expecting a very, very rapid market uptake also in the other countries. Then our report also show a review on the available publications on this topic. So we see that we have more scientific publication coming from Europe in the last year, and in particular on the right you find more disaggregated data regarding the countries that are submitting such publications. Finally, just to conclude my quick presentation, again, sorry, because our report is full of information, so I'm inviting you to go there and check the specific result. However, I want to provide you some takeaway messages to conclude my presentation. In particular, to remark that Refombios are crucial for decarbonizing the transport sectors, in particular the hard to abate transport sector where the electrification is challenging, in particular maritime and aviation. For sure, also heavy duty sector could be considered. We have some policies in the EU that are that could go in this direction. However, it's important also to mention that today the production is quite low, but we have already some target up to 2030 and beyond. So we have to consider that the production will ramp up quite soon, in particular because we already have an established policy framework. For sure, we need large-scale investments to do it. It's important to mention that the upstream process to produce such fuels needs to be further developed as well, in particular the carbon capture and storage sector, and carbon capture and utilization, and the hydrogen production, renewable hydrogen production, which is something that is arriving quite soon. And in particular, it's important to mention that such fuels are drop-in fuels. So in many cases, we can use these fuels in the existing infrastructure, meaning that we haven't to do big changes as regard the vehicles and the other ways of transport, apart probably for maritime sector, which needs a bit more retrofitting. Finally, want to stress that the established European framework, legislative framework, is already considering a rapid market uptake of such fuels. In particular, we are setting in the last we set in the last year the new framework, and we expect that these fuels will be crucial not only to decarbonize the transport sector, but also the chemical industry, in particular for the production of synthetic chemicals and also fertilizers. So there are advantages also to decarbonize other sector the time that we are going to set up these new value chains. So that's it from my side. I have to thank you, all of you, for being here, and I'm here for questions for sure.
Thank you, Dr. Buffi. Okay, we have time for one or two questions. So let's start with the first one. The regulatory framework for RFNBO is certainly moved from positive goals to increase renewable share in final sector. However, there is a complexity issue that makes it difficult to be understood and implemented for off-takers. Moreover, it is expected to monitor and review the delegated acts at 2028 from the EU. Additionality, correlation, proximity. This probably introduces further uncertainties. Could you kindly share your thoughts on these points? This is from Professor Pierluigi Leone. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for this question. As regards the JRC work, we are providing the scientific support to produce this kind of policies, which unfortunately cannot, let's say, recap all the important information just in one policy package. But we have a lot of policy packages that are intrinsically work together to deliver such target of decarbonization. And here for this sector, we have to consider first the hydrogen production. So we cannot only go to see the legislation that is regulating the renewable fuel and biological origin routes, but because there must be synergies together with other policies. Before I mentioned the low carbon fuel delegated regulation, which is coming out, is quite stringent, but in any case is providing, let's say, additional rules to complement the production of renewable hydrogen with fossil-based decarbonized hydrogen to ramp up the hydrogen production. And putting together the rules of the two delegated regulation is possible to understand which would be the criteria on how to share the production between renewable and non-renewable hydrogen. So this is very important because we cannot go to see just one policy. And together with these rules, we have to consider the side rules as regard, for instance, the sustainable economy, the taxonomy. So meaning that we have the Net Zero Industry Act that is providing support to build the infrastructure. And we have also to consider that we have also coming other, let's say, funding mechanism, in particular with the from the Hydrogen Bank and other institutional bodies that are going to consider how to ramp up this production. So to summarize my answer, I think we are still in a moment where the legislation is going to be, let's say, concluded quite soon. And once it's established, there are already some mechanisms that are considering on how to provide sustainable investment to ramp up this kind of value chains.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Buffi. Thank you again for your talk. In the interest of time, we need to move on to our next speaker. There are a couple more questions for you in the Q&A, so if you could kindly follow up, that would be great. Thank you again for your time.
Thanks.